thank you so much for coming, because it is a little early after the first night. I'm sure you've all been up singing Agadoo. I was thinking, Randy, we should get the Queens of RuPaul's Drag Race UK to do a cover version of Agadoo.
Oh my God, yes.
I think it's time. And make a video and have the little dog in the video. And
we should talk to Kim about that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
So, that's the first idea. That's all we got, actually. That's the end of the show. Thanks for coming.
Okay, so probably a lot of you don't know who we are. And that's okay. We're not going to go through that really that much today because we're doing a bunch of panels and hopefully you can come visit and we'll share bits and pieces along the way.
Yeah, we're doing the, on Saturday, it's called the Wow Factor, and very excited because Dawn Airy, CBE, is conversating with us, we're in conversation with her, and because Dawn Airy was sort of founders at Channel 5, Channel 4, ITV, Sky. She's been a real sort of pioneer of British broadcasting. And the other thing about Dawn is she's got a mouth like a trucker? We'll say that. I don't know. But she swears a lot, and she's really, if you don't know Dawn, she's really amazing. So we're going to be
So we have that, then we're going to have a conversation with Ronan Farrow later today. We're going to be showing a sneak peek of a film we actually haven't finished it. It's billed as a world premiere, but it's not done. But we're doing that tomorrow night, Murder in Glitterball City. We're having a party tomorrow night. That hopefully...
Agadoo.
There will be drag queens. And Inside Deep Throat. We're showing Inside Deep Throat. Sorry, we're doing the promo part at the beginning.
Right. So we hope to see you every single day. We're also doing an evening with Adam and Joe, which was a very early series we did at World of Wonder, and we're so excited to be reunited with them. We're just going to introduce them, and they're going to do an amazing show. I think it's sold out, but you can maybe get tickets. What else is one other thing? Oh, tonight is the premiere, the UK premiere of Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror. It's a documentary by Linus O'Brien, who is the son of Richard O'Brien, who is the creator of the show. And it just so happens that it is actually screening on the 52nd anniversary of the very first performance of Rocky Horror on the King's Road in London, which is like, I think it's kind of neat. And we EP'd that documentary. I think we covered it, Randy.
Yeah.
We've done all the promo.
So what we're going to talk to you about today is, we've been around for a long time. We started World of Wonder last century. And while we've had some success, the interesting thing is, to this day, we have never sold an idea in the room. We once someone said to us, I'll take that, and then the next day they called us up and changed their mind. We've been fortunate enough to make a lot of stuff, but when we thought about this panel, we realized it's not that different today, the way we try and sell ideas, than it was for us 30 years ago. When we did The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Party Monster, they were both films that we went around and pitched, couldn't get any financing for, started making them, and then that's when we found partners.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why we thought it would be kind of a fun way. I mean, I know often doc producers like to keep what they're doing, not secret so much, but like, we thought we would just open it up and show you some projects, some in various states of being sold, some not sold. Maybe today's the lucky day. But show you some of the thinking that went into them and the materials we're using. It's really, I think our intention is to just have an open dialogue and just share with you a little bit about our process. And yeah, hopefully you won't take any of our advice because...
It's really about our different hustles. Because it is all about hustling, in a way. So, and you'll see with each project, there's a slightly different approach based on the project. And if you guys have any questions, I mean, we're pretty laid back, so just let us know. I think they need to get a mic to people, but
or you can just shout it down.
Yeah, we'll do that along the way rather than waiting until the end.
Should we do the first? So we've got 4 projects to share with you. Should we start with the first one? Okay, so the first one is T.S. Madison Starter House. And it's really an example of, this is a project that came to us kind of as an unfolding story. And so there was a real kind of sense of urgency. But it also has a larger-than-life character. And I think probably, well, you guys know who T.S. Madison is, right? Yes. Some of you do, some of you don't. She broke out, I guess, in terms of independent film with roles in Bros and Zola. She's a favorite Drag Race judge.
She's a black trans woman who earlier in life was a sex worker. She's very open about it. And she's sort of become a queen of media in the US. And I think that's an example of a real story happening right now. I mean, you all know what's going on in America now. And trans women are like, don't even exist technically. And so T.S. started doing this. She's a friend of ours. She reached out, let us know, and we started filming. And in this instance, we did a tape very quickly, really, this is the tape, we turned it around very quickly and called everyone we knew. We kind of had a sense that we weren't going to be able to sell it, which has been the case so far. But in this instance, we're continuing with the project and making the project. We're fortunate enough to have a streaming service where if at the end of the day we can't get a partner, we would self-produce it, self-finance it really cheaply. We're scrappy, and put it out on our streaming platform.
I think that's been the big game changer for us, is being able to launch WowBB. And I know there's a lot about streaming and the streaming wars and the billions and billions that the massive players are spending, none of which applies to us and our model. The truth is that the back end of the app is powered by Vimeo, so it's I think they say it's skinned on top of, it's a white label service they offer, but it is doable. I mean,
it's like plug-in.
It really is, and as long as we, as Randy says, we would have to do it in a very stripped down way, but in a way that could be really authentic to the characters. One of the very earliest films we made was called LA Stories, and again, going back pretty much last century, the BBC had the CPU, the Community Program Unit, and one of the things that they did was they started video diaries. They would give these hi-8 prosumer camcorders to individuals to tell their own stories. And we did this thing in the wake of the LA riots, where we gave a whole bunch of people in LA those kind of camcorders and made a 3-hour documentary for BBC called LA Stories. But my point is that actually doing that thing early on, that technique of people telling their own stories, I mean, we've seen now social media, TikTok, Instagram, I mean, YouTube, people are able to make their own stories and tell their own stories. So, long story short, or actually short story long, we think that we could produce this ourselves if we empower the girls in the house and really encourage them to tell their own stories.
And I think part of it we're not just sharing a failed pitch tape, because there are so many factors involved in it. The climate right now with buyers in the US, the political pressure of stepping away from politically sensitive content, all that is very real right now. But for us, A, we're really, we're committed to the idea, but B, this is talent that we have a relationship with, which, that to us, is an important thing to keep in mind as producers or directors. When you meet people that you have a connection with, who you believe in. Rue's another example, someone we've known for over 30 years. And when we meet people like that, we build that relationship, because when something like this happens, we're like the first in line. And so that's part of, I think, the takeaway of this is just maintain relationships with important talent. And then also, we're going to make so much noise about this project. So even though we don't have other partners at this point in time, we feel pretty confident that maybe someone will step in, or at least it will be an important film for a pretty significant audience.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem a real, certainly you probably don't have the same anxiety here in the UK, but in the States, it's not just what the government is doing in terms of de-legaling trans and queer people. I mean, I just saw the government's turning off the suicide hotline for the LGBTQ community, which is pretty shocking. I mean, they're going to do it in 30 days. Maybe it'll be one of those Trump taco things, Trump always chickens out. But in the meantime, it's amazing actually, because Canada have provided a free hotline service for people from the US to access the same services. But so maybe it's not the same here in terms of what's happening. So, but in some respects, we felt initially, oh my gosh, this is a real bummer, because none of the usual cable places we would go to with this will touch it. Not because they are part of that censorship, but because they themselves are frightened. They are worried that if they put something out, they will attract the government's attention. I'm sure some of you have read about the lawsuit that Trump has against CBS. And it's very unfortunate for CBS because Trump wants $20 billion because they interviewed his opponent in the run-up to the election. I mean, it's outrageous, but unfortunately for CBS, Paramount, who owns CBS, have to take this seriously because they are trying to sell themselves. And that deal to go through needs the approval of the administration. And then they're not going to get it unless they pay some money. I mean, it's a terrible position to be in.
Dark times.
Yeah, but, I'm sorry, I'm meandering off, but I do have a point, which is that that was a real bummer. Like, we can't go to A&E, we can't go to, like, all the usual places we would go. But then on the other hand, we were like, hang on a second, we have a distinct advantage here because fuck the government, fuck Donald Trump. We don't owe him anything or have he has no leverage over us. I mean, I suppose he could deport us, but...
let's not think about it.
Okay. So we're able to go where other people fear to tread at this point in time. So in a way it feels, circumstances might be conspiring against you, but actually I'd say they're conspiring to help us in this particular instance, right?
Right.
Okay.
So we're...
Everyone else, yes?
You just said that you're going to try and use your position to sort of shout about this new project. How are you going to do that? Because traditionally, your partners would be funding the outreach, the marketing campaign. So I just wondered how you're going to do that.
Well, for us, we are a really scrappy production company. And from the get-go, we've had to make our own noise about all of our projects. Like from 30 years ago, pre-social media. Currently we have a pretty big social media footprint, and we've been around for so long. We've just created and maintained relationships with people in the media, people in social media. So has TS. So I think it's kind of a press and social media thing and a Reddit thing and just getting the word out. You know, I feel like increasingly as producers and directors, you kind of need to do a little bit of all of it, and that's served us well the longer we've been around.
I think actually drag and trans community, but drag as well, has been a real sort of core inspiration for us in that, you know, Randy and I would like skip film school class and go to the Pyramid and see these drag shows, and they were, as it were, like they were taking place at Pyramid Club was in Alphabet City in this really dodgy neighborhood, and it's a tiny hole-in-the-wall club. But the queens, in addition to being incredible performers, also were really good self-promoters in terms of finding an audience. I mean, Ru, he would go out and week post pictures, posters of himself all over town. And that sense that it's one thing to be a star, but it's certainly not about sitting back and just being adored and admired and being iconic. I mean, there's that too. But it's really working and figuring out how to get an audience and then how to cultivate that audience and keep that audience loyal and engaged. And social media has been incredible for all of us, I would say, in giving us the ability to do that. The challenge now is how do you cut through the clutter, because everybody's doing it, you know. But that's the way. I mean, Wow Business Plus, we don't have a large marketing budget. We do spend money on Facebook ads and we'll do social media advertising, and it works. But word of mouth is still the most powerful thing.
So we're not going to talk about drag queens for this whole panel, but the next thing that we wanted to share with you is about drag queens. But it's just a different example to share with you. This is a film that someone we knew was making, and at some point he got stuck and he came to us, and he couldn't sell it, he tried to get it in festivals, it wasn't really done. And he showed it to us, and we sort of fell in love with it and the idea of it. And so it's sort of an example of it's not just established networks and outlets that you guys should consider to partner with, because it's people like us, right?
Oh yeah.
And
yeah. Bring us stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
It was actually called it was called Best in Show. That was what it was called when it came to us. And
Best in Drag.
Best in Drag.
Yes.
Best in Drag.
Best in Drag.
Well, anyway, I was like, the title has to go.
There you go.
No, I mean, John Carlo, what happened was, I mean, some of these stories are a little tangential, but I hope they illustrate the fact that tangential is really the key to everything, seriously, because I was thinking about how this project came to us, and it was John Carlos Frey who was the director of the film, but he came to us because of Lewis from, do you guys remember Vogue? Madonna? The
Madonna song.
The video.
It's because of Madonna.
It is kind of, yes. In the video, two gorgeous guys are basically doing all the voguing and the dancing, and one of them was Jose, and one of them was Lewis. And again, a lot of last century today, I'm sorry. But Randy and I did a film for the BBC about Wigstock, which was this drag pageant in Union Square in New York.
Really, it won't all be about drag. We're almost done with the drag.
And it was like a 14-minute piece for the Late Show, and in the course of that, we did all these interviews, and we interviewed Jose and Lewis. And it was the most pathetic interview, because me and Randy were just like drooling at them. We were just like, oh my God, they were so sweet and funny and shy and gorgeous. But we ended up...
I think Fenton did that interview, actually. I was not there for that interview. But
okay, I'm having a hot flush. But anyway, we just sort of kept in touch, and Lewis stopped dancing and moved to Palm Springs, became sober, and joined this group of sober people who would put on this pageant once a year. And it was Lewis and Don Carlos who was making this documentary called Randy and Fenton. And that's how Don Carlos came in with this cart. And the thing about it was that, and it was great, I mean, some of the humor, this pageant's been going on for 25 years, some of the humor is really off. It wouldn't work today. But, you know, some of it's also kind of funny. And also, not buried, but kind of buried in the film, was the story of how the pageant started, which, is it a spoiler alert? No. This kid, Alexis, was a huge fan of Vanessa Williams, and he started the pageant in his apartment as a tribute to Miss America, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a really beautiful story because there's that connection, but then also it was, you know, when AIDS started decimating the gay communities, and this was in WeHo, and so they did, all of them were sober, so there's this story of sobriety that goes through the whole film, and then they started raising money for AIDS, like when people weren't even doing that. Like they did it, the first few pageants were in their living room, and people would put like $10 in a bucket, and it went from like $300 or $400 the first year to $55 million. Like it became this huge thing, and none of them are professional drag queens. And part of, I think, what resonated is this idea of the power of community, and it felt particularly resonant. You know, it was maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago we started working with them, but it seemed such a shame that they had this film that was almost done, and they really didn't have a place to take it, and we felt like with not too much we could provide post support and some creative input on the cuts, and
Like the title.
And so you know, we picked it up, and it's now on our streaming service, and actually this weekend there's a big screening of it in Palm Springs, so we're supporting it in kind of indie way, you know, independent ways, but it is getting out there, which is just feels kind of good.
And it does actually speak to the fact that I think in America as well, and maybe here, independent self-distribution really is becoming a viable thing. There's a documentary I must say I've not seen called Secret Mall Apartment, and it's a documentary about these kids who built an apartment in a mall without anyone knowing, and they lived there. And they decided Jesse Eisenberg is the executive producer, and they decided not to take any of the distribution deals because they couldn't get any interest, and so they self-distributed, and it's doing phenomenally well because it just sounds like such a kind of sexy thing that you would be like, that sounds really great.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope it'll be coming here. Any questions about Little Pageant That Could with the amazing title?
Just can I ask a question about what you were talking about there? Did you repackage it into like a standalone film? Did you try and get it into festivals? How have you, instead of like you redid it before you would go, yeah?
It was always a feature film, and so it just wasn't finished. So we helped them finish it and tighten up the cut a bit. And by the way, we shared it. We went out because we're happy to find ways to have partners and combine them with the streaming platform and carve up territories or whatever. So we did take it out before we finally committed to do the release globally on Wow Presents Plus.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because obviously the festivals wouldn't want it on a platform before they would show it, would they?
They wouldn't, but we're not Netflix, so we did festivals leading up to, and still do festivals, because it's particularly LGBTQ festivals. It's a great film for that as well.
And it's early days, but I think that the argument of exclusivity, that festivals want to have it first, or that streaming platforms want to have it just to themselves, all those generational models, I kind of think they're losing their traction. And that actually in the super fragmented landscape we're in, it makes sense for people to be able to get together and for multiple things to work simultaneously in concert, rather than we've got to have all the rights exclusively. I think it's going to be hard to let some institutions, it's hard for some to let go of that idea, but increasingly there are opportunities where people will be like, I only need these rights, I only need this, or I need a window, or something like that. So that it's always worth really laying out a case that you think makes the most sense for the film.
Or just making noise about the film to everyone and everything possible, whether it's, buyers, billionaires, whatever. Okay, so that's the end of the drag portion of the program.
Let's move on to billionaires.
Yes. This is another project we'll probably never sell to anyone.
It's
because
specialty.
We're just giving you
really well.
Yes, it really is, but we don't give up. But because we could make or the temptation would be, because the thing about the Fogo experiment is that there are people who have lived on the island for a very long time, the locals, and then there are the newcomers who are artists, and it's become an artisan community with a luxury hotel. And there's a story there between those two factions, which could be like a hot reality show.
Right.
That's not what this is going to be.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's kind of what happened, was that, another tangential story, bear with me. We started out, and the very first show we did in the UK was Ring My Bell. It was an enormous
I don't know where he's getting all this. I don't see that on the cards anywhere.
And we had an officer in London, and we had an intern called Tommy Smythe, and he was a student, he was a really sweet kid. Well, long story short story long, he goes back, he's Canadian, he goes back to Canada, becomes this huge fuck-off interior designer. And one day he calls up saying, you don't remember me? And I say, oh yeah, I do. And he said, I've just come back from this amazing place, the Fogo Island Inn. You really should look into it. And I'm like, okay. And he tells me that, it takes basically 2 days to get there, because you have to fly to St. John's in Newfoundland, and then you have to take a car, and then you have to take a ferry, and you have to take I mean, it's a long trek to get there. So I don't know quite how this is going to work. But went to the inn, and it was, Zita Cobb was third highest female executive paid in the world. And she literally was the only one on Fogo Island who could read or write. She did everybody's taxes on the island. And when the fishing industry died, her dad burnt his boat and told Zita, you have to fix this. And so she went off to college, became this huge business executive, returned to the island, and built this inn. And it's a bit like Noah's Ark. It's like, what is it doing? It has almost no place. And so when Jeremy Simmons, who's a brilliant producer-director who we've worked with for many, many years, went off and filmed, and we put together the initial reel, and we were really excited, and we played it to Zita, and she was like, because it was focused on the tension between the locals and the artists who came in. And Zita instead said, look, I'm working on this community, but as a result of it, lots of people are reaching out to me about other communities. And she was the one who said, you guys are not going to sell this. It's wrong, it's not going to work as a reality show, I won't be a part of it. But B, it should be about this other bigger idea. What Elon Musk is doing, not we don't name him in the reel, but kind of implicit. Did you see Starburst exploded? Starbase exploded? It did this morning. Randy's looking at me like, stay on the point. Stay.
It did explode.
But the point being, like, we're going to go live on Mars. If we're like at each other's throats, how's that going to work? There is a real job to do building communities. And Zita's argument is that it takes, and here's the point, that it does in fact take a lot of resources and money to be able to do that. And so the role of billionaires and wealth is not to build space projects, but to really find ways to rebuild community. And that's what the intention of this series is.
Yeah, and it's, wouldn't that be great if billionaires spent their money trying to save the planet and save communities? It's so far-fetched. But here is one who's doing it, and
there's others, and Zita says,
yes.
You're not going to sell this to a regular network. Let me help you find private equity that wants to support this project. So hopefully that will be what happens.
So the takeaway for this is to become friends with billionaires. And how do you do that, Fenton?
Blow one. Any questions about that? Should we just go on?
When you're dealing with a billionaire and she says, no, I don't want it this way, I want it another way, doesn't that take away the independence or the control of the filmmaker?
That's a really good question. In this, I think it could, but in this instance, like the suggestion to make this about a much bigger idea, which is actually her truth and what she's doing. She actually realigned our direction in a way that makes it unsellable, but makes it a much more valuable and honest project. So I think that would be the case if we were probably working with Elon Musk on something, but
in a way it makes it a documentary rather than a reality show. We are in a documentary festival. I mean, it doesn't look that unsellable to me, to be perfectly honest, and I think there have been other films about Mars communities or Mars One, those sorts of experiments. It seems to me that kind of a big idea in a small place.
I mean, I agree, we did soft pitch it to a couple of places that we thought would be ideal, and they were like, well, it's great, but we're kind of doing bigger swings with big celebrity names, which is sort of paradoxically kind of implicit in your question. And Zita herself does not really want to be in this or the focus of this, and certainly, as Randy said, she does not want to control it. And by the way, she didn't pay for any of this. Like, we haven't, we self-funded it. And she's only offering to connect us with people who might want to fund it. And I suspect it may end up being a consortium of different people, which I think would go some way, hopefully, to addressing the concern about editorial concerns. I think also this would really be best suited as a series rather than a feature documentary. I mean, you may disagree, but I think you want to be able to see what other communities are doing and how they're doing it. I think the great thing about series sometimes is you can have that real estate, that space to really get into stories in real detail, but yeah.
And by the way, I do think we do not see this ultimately on our streaming service. We do see this on a much larger platform, but we feel like to get it there, we need to come with partners. And that speaks to what Fenton was talking about a little earlier, how we're finding that a lot of outlets that used to, when you go to them, it never seemed possible that you could bring other partners in, or it seemed like that was an anomaly rather than something that they were interested in. But now people are so adverse to spending any kind of money or taking risks. It seems
I mean, haven't you seen in the UK increasingly, if you can come with a brand partner, for example, suddenly the conversation changes in terms of like, well, if channel X, Y, or Z, if it's paid for, suddenly is less of a problem commissioning it. I've been aware of that. I mean, I was just at Cannes Lions, which is this big advertising festival, and I know it's been talked about for many years, that sort of the era of brand content, but I do think more and more it is going to be not so much necessary, but an opportunity to work with brands and different kinds of funders, because we're seeing that the networks themselves have less and less resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, right?
Yeah, we have one last thing, and then we're done. And there is a drag queen in this, I think.
Oh, well, depends on your definition.
Do you want to talk about Mike?
Yeah. Mike Lerner of Roast Beef Productions. We were at Sundance and literally walked into a bar and heard the word Liberace. And I turned around and whiplash. Liberace, what? And I just introduced myself and said, "You doing a film about Liberace?" He said, "Yes." And it's like, how dare you? Without us. I mean, that's the shorter version of this very tender story. Like, forced ourselves into it and became friends with Mike from Roast Beef. And he's amazing because Mike had got the rights from the Liberace estate. They'd never given the rights to make the documentary. So we partnered up.
So we haven't sold that one.
No. And I think the title there is Liberace, but we thought, when we talk about these projects, we should always start with the log line, because I guess that's what you do in the pitch normally. But we then thought, having finished this reel, that actually it should be Liberace lives! Exclamation point. And that is the log line, because he was, in a way, entertainment visionary, original affluencer, queer pioneer. I mean, he really built Las Vegas. And his memory, has been erased because when he died of AIDS, he was very much judged as someone who was self-hating and in the closet. And personally, I think that the HBO series Behind the Candelabra didn't really erase that. I think it sort of further, if you had a negative view of Liberace, you weren't going to come away from that thinking that he was one of the most important American artists on a level of Walt Disney, Andy Warhol, which we happen to believe. And so that's the intention of the film, is to reframe Liberace, kind of in a way we did with The Eyes of Tammy Faye, who, when we made that film, was a national, international joke, but we felt there was this very different person who, in spite of her evangelical beliefs, was fundamentally a kind and compassionate person.
Yeah, and he truly was this phenomenal businessman, and just even some of the details about his business success are kind of unknown. I mean, there was several years that he was the highest paid television star also. So we just find...
And he was a pioneer in television.
Yeah.
He was like one of the first people who played directly to the camera. And
he was so gay. I mean, that's the other thing. He was so gay. And, it just was unspoken. Everybody knew he was gay. He didn't have to say anything.
It was like a Trojan horse, really, right? He was able to go right into the heart of the American mainstream, right into people's living rooms, just be embraced and loved the way he was in his heyday. And even though he's been subsequently judged for having a complete failure of self-identification, he in fact knew that it was the only way he could do it. And he did it. And I think queerness and showmanship and fabulousness and drag all owe him a huge debt. And I do think spectacle is at the it's kind of at the core of the American experience. And, you know, sometimes we joke about drag and people say, well, what you do is fundamentally niche. And yet, we say, well, look at Vegas. Vegas is the #1 tourist destination in America. And it is one of the fastest growing cities in America. And you cannot get more mainstream. Everyone comes from everywhere to Las Vegas. But what is Las Vegas? It's a drag queen. It's a city in drag. You've got the Eiffel Tower, you've got pyramids. I mean, the whole thing it's in fabulous, outrageous costume. I mean, you may not like Las Vegas, but that's the dynamic of that city. So, no, maybe, do I have a point here?
I think your point is that we're almost out of time. And, but I was just going to add, not onto that particular idea, but part of sharing this particular project with you guys is, like, while it hasn't been commissioned, it is something that we have pitched in a very traditional way, which we continue to do, even though we have all these other alternatives. And part of that is because we know it's a provocative pitch. And Fenton and I will try and do as much pitching as we can, because even if we know we'll never sell the idea, we give a good time in the room, because it is, even though we say, oh God, no one's going to greenlight it, most executives we know are cool people. Many of them come from an indie film background, or they want to do great things, but they're working for all these other people. And so those whenever we have an opportunity to hang out with those people and continue nurturing those relationships, like purely out of selfishness too, because we like so many of them, but if it doesn't lead to a green light in the room, for us, it's, this pitch in particular, like everyone wanted to hear it, and people still ask us about it. So it's not dead, it's kind of alive. It's like when someone has enough money and when, I don't know.
I think the pitch lives.
The pitch lives.
The pitch
Yes.
lives. But you're saying it's important to give good pitch. I think that's...
And to get to know those people even when they say no, because no is the beginning of yes.
I should just say, actually, that I'm partial, I admit, but every time I see this reel, and it's just the first 90 seconds or so of a 10-minute reel, because we thought...
It's really good.
It's edited by Francie Catcher, who's here. Francie, where are you?
Way in the back.
Audience participation moment. There's Francie, who did a great job editing. And actually, Francie also edited Glitterball, which we're doing a sneak peek of on Fridays.
And Maplethorpe, and so many things.
Yeah.
Great. So I think
A moment for questions, if there are
Yeah.
any. Yeah.
You keep talking about the business side of things, and I'm just wondering how many projects over the years that come to you fairly completed, either documentary or probably less so a docuseries. How many you've been able to sell and get back the filmmaker's investment? I worked at Scout Productions for 20 years, which very closely parallels your company, and we never managed to sell anything that was somewhat completed. We always had going with pitch reels, etc. So, have you had some success with completed docs, selling them and getting back some sort of investment on them?
we've had success not doing a pitch reel and starting to make a film and taking it out after the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So committing to make the film. But then, we did a film about Chaz Bono, about his transition. And we didn't have any takers. We didn't do a pitch reel. We talked to people. And then it was happening, and we liked Chaz, and we just started filming, and then took the 20 minutes out. So we have had success there. In terms of things we haven't developed ourselves or produced ourselves, people who've come outside and brought things to us that are done or almost done, it's been difficult for us and them to make their money back. We're always pretty, it's not that we're the last stop on the train's line, but in some ways, like, you know, any of those filmmakers are going to prefer getting a deal at Netflix or something else, and they know, and we're very direct. You know, you spent $100,000 on this. I don't know if we're going to be able to recoup all that, but this is what we can offer you if you're at a point where you haven't sold it. And we often will take that out as well, again, in addition to being able to offer to put it on our network if we can't find another home.
I mean, but regardless, you have to have tape, I think. It just doesn't, you can have the best idea, but without something on tape, right?
Unless you have Cher. You know?
Well,
Can I just ask another question? On funding again. Have you ever co-produced anything with European public funding? I mean, in other words, starting with public funding at the beginning, not you know, making it and then selling it to a public broadcaster.
well, I mean, I guess does BBC count in that?
No, I mean public funding like film institutes or
yeah.
film funds or all of those.
We haven't. Probably should think about that, right?
Fenton's busy blowing billionaires.
I've clearly been wasting my time.
Great.
We don't want you to leave empty-handed, but this isn't the Oprah Winfrey Show, so we don't actually have anything under your seat.
If yes, reach under your seats. You get a car.
But did you all get little lottery tickets when you came in? Oh, okay. Maybe I should tell you, Randy, will you tell people what they've won?
This is, you will win Fenton's amazing book. It's not self-serving or anything. Like, we're actually offering you, what are we offering?
A free copy.
A free copy of your book, but can you say something insightful about it? Because you wrote it. I mean, it's amazing.
It's a book called Screen Age, and I think the subtitle is From RuPaul's Drag Race to Tammy Faye. From RuPaul's Drag Race to The Eyes of Tammy Faye, How Reality Changed TV. And it's about this sort of weird space of, you know, what is documentary, what is reality TV, but fundamentally, whatever they are, we're living in a screen age, and that fundamentally, we watch infinitely more on our screens than we did. And I think the book also argues that we will watch even more than we do in future.
It's scary.
Well, I know people are complaining how bad it is that people are on their screens, but this is a bit of the flip side, saying actually telling stories and being able to see other people's lives through the magic of a screen is a pretty radical technology. And as much as it's been decried as being for the bad, it can also surely be for the good. And so it's a different perspective. Do you get that screen warning, like how long you've been on your phone every week? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to show off, but I think I got a notification that I was on my phone 12 hours a day. I think, no, that can't be right. Yeah, everyone nods and is very judgy. Yes, judge away. And I'll go even further. That's not the only screen I'm on. I'm on my laptop at the same time, checking my emails while doing a Zoom, because Randy's always texting me while I'm, you say, look up, you know, because we have to multitask. Anyway, okay, going off the point again. But if you want a copy, and your number on the ticket is,
What if they don't?
well, they all begin with 924, so I'm not going to read out 924. The last three numbers are 010. Oh! Yay! You win a copy! This is kind of fun. Randy, do you want to pick one?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. 032.
I think 0.
They already laughed.
Maybe they don't want it.
034.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, we got a winner.
067. Gosh, we got a lot of walkouts here. Should have announced this at the beginning, right?
Should have been cash. 041.
Yay! Okay. 044. Right, and the last one is 028. Hey! Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Come to our party.
And we'll give you the books outside.